We are not going to sell a single Bitcoin, period. Those were the startling words that echoed through Washington, prompting both skeptics and enthusiasts alike to do a double take. Imagine the United States government, famously methodical in its financial policies, now uttering a phrase that sounds more like it belongs on a crypto forum than in the halls of the White House. But believe it or not, that is exactly what happened, and it has caused a ripple effect across every major economic sector. What is truly going on here? And how could this decision, this seemingly unwavering stance to hoard Bitcoin, reshape the entire financial landscape? Today, we are taking a deep dive into this remarkable story, exploring the plans, the motivations, and the high-voltage controversies swirling around one of the most audacious national reserve strategies we have ever seen. In this program, prepare yourself for a full exploration of the hot-button questions. Why is the administration so resolute in its determination to collect Bitcoin as though it were a precious metal? What do insiders at the Senate Banking Committee really think? Could this be a moment that forever alters the course of both American and global economic policies? And most importantly, what might it mean for average citizens, as well as businesses and policy watchdogs? Over the next several minutes, we will uncover the many layers to this tale. We will look at the political ramifications, the historical parallels, and the reasons behind the White House's persistent drumbeat, calling Bitcoin digital gold. But that is only the beginning. We will then examine the mysteries behind Hines, an influential figure who has catapulted Bitcoin to the forefront of public discourse in Washington. We will dig into how his bold statements, delivered in front of the Senate Banking Committee, have drawn applause from crypto believers and sharp criticism from those worried about the volatility of digital assets. We will also shine a spotlight on behind-the-scenes negotiations, rumored strategic alliances, and the extent to which this policy might push other global superpowers to rethink their own approach. If you love intrigue, you are in for a treat, because the drama here is boundless and continues to evolve by the day. Now, do not blink, because the next chapter of this saga is as riveting as it is unpredictable. After an explosive event at the Bitcoin Policy Institute, where top officials from the administration laid out an outline that included gradual accumulation over a range of years, the timeline became a subject of feverish speculation. Why spread out the purchases of Bitcoin, and what signals does that send to financial institutions and international observers? Furthermore, is the White House quietly hoping to influence the global conversation, effectively nudging other governments to view Bitcoin through the lens of a long-term reserve asset? Let's rewind for a moment to place all of this in context. For decades, the United States has maintained a solid strategic framework around its monetary reserves. Gold has always been the undisputed champion of that system, a safe haven asset known for its capacity to weather economic storms. But times are changing, and from the perspective of those in the government who advocate for Bitcoin, the logic is all too clear. Bitcoin is the new frontier. It is resilient, it is decentralized, and it is digital gold, or so they say. It's a narrative that resonates powerfully with certain lawmakers and with the public, especially as the conversation around digital currencies grows more mainstream. Yet even among supporters, the idea of never selling stands out as particularly radical. Now, let us jump into the specifics of these statements. Just recently, at the 2025 Bitcoin conference, yes, you heard that right, the not-too-distant future is coming quicker than you might think, Hines took the podium to declare, once again, that the White House intends to accumulate a formidable hoard of Bitcoin. He reiterated the line that has set tongues wagging from Capitol Hill to Silicon Valley. We are not going to sell any Bitcoin that the United States government owns. We want to get as much as we can. In some ways, the choice of words, "we want to get as much as we can," almost sounds like a declaration of a treasure hunt, reminiscent of explorers chasing after gold bullion in centuries past. Critics argue that this stance is short-sighted. They say that no one can predict what will happen to Bitcoin in the long run. Volatility, security breaches, and regulatory uncertainties are common stumbling blocks. Yet the White House's unwavering optimism suggests that the uncertainties could be overshadowed by the potential to anchor the nation's financial infrastructure in what they call a borderless digital asset. In some policy circles, the conversation has turned to whether this stance might provoke other countries to create or adopt their own digital currencies, or to accelerate existing plans for central bank digital tokens. If that happens, the United States might find itself in the middle of a global digital arms race, so to speak, piling up intangible resources as a bulwark against shifting global tides. But hold on. This new direction is not just about the accumulation of some intangible coin in a digital wallet. According to insider whispers, there is a broader strategy unfolding. Allegedly, administration officials, including Hines, have been meeting with leading economists, software developers, and cybersecurity experts to lay the groundwork for a robust infrastructure that can manage and safeguard these digital assets. After all, storing billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin is not like tossing coins into a porcelain piggy bank. Every detail must be accounted for. The encryption protocols, the multi-signature arrangements, the cold storage solutions, and the strategic holdings that might even be spread across multiple locations. If even one aspect fails, the cost could be astronomical. So, is the White House prepared for all this complexity? Let us delve deeper. According to Hines, the answer is an unequivocal yes. In his remarks to the Senate Banking Committee, he stressed the administration's readiness to tackle technological challenges shape-shifting by the day. He pointed to the legion of experts from both the public and private sectors who are being tapped to ensure that the government's approach to Bitcoin is as secure as it is forward-looking. The question remains, however, whether the larger public will buy into this vision. Skeptics remain on high alert, some outspokenly labeling the White House's posture as dangerously experimental. Yet supporters feel that the United States is no stranger to new frontiers, especially when they hold the promise of financial leadership on the global stage. Here is a moment to reflect. If you are as intrigued by this evolving story as I am, consider tapping that like button. It helps show that you are excited to follow these developments, and it lets everyone know that you want more insights into how crypto policies may reshape the future for us all. Of course, for many people, the real question is not just about whether the government can execute such a plan effectively, but why it wants to do so in the first place. Let us not forget that many in the United States government have historically been wary of cryptocurrencies, citing concerns over money laundering, consumer protection, and the broader potential for economic disruption. So, how did we get from that cautionary stance to an outright vow never to part with a single Satoshi? A significant turning point came during private sessions between White House policymakers and a set of advisors from the tech community. These were not merely superficial courtesy calls. They were intense brainstorming meetings lasting hours at a time, dissecting the architecture of blockchains, analyzing the underlying code, and measuring Bitcoin's role as a store of value in a rapidly digitizing global economy. That is when Hines, among others, came away convinced that Bitcoin has matured beyond its initial hype cycle. According to multiple insiders, it was no longer about fueling clandestine transactions on obscure websites, but about potentially serving as an alternative asset that central banks, governments, and institutional investors either already embrace or will soon come to embrace. Still, as we unpack these revelations, it is essential to highlight that the notion of never selling carries with it a host of complicated implications. For instance, if the government does indeed amass a sizable treasury of Bitcoin, how might that affect long-term pricing and supply dynamics? Bitcoin has a finite supply, capped at a specific number of coins. If the United States, plus a handful of other nations, decide to hoard these digital tokens, does that mean the price will skyrocket, potentially pushing Bitcoin out of the reach of private investors, small businesses, or everyday citizens? And how would lawmakers respond to potential accusations of fueling speculative bubbles or inadvertently increasing wealth disparity? On the flip side, supporters answer that a robust national reserve anchored, in part, by Bitcoin could shield against inflationary pressures and currency devaluation. After all, any economist worth their salt will tell you that national debt and ballooning money supplies have sparked constant debates over the stability of traditional fiat currencies. Might adopting a partially Bitcoin-backed policy forestall or mitigate some of these perennial worries? Or is it a gamble that rests on the assumption that the rest of the world will follow suit, or at least accept Bitcoin as a legitimate asset class? For many in the crypto community, the White House's stance is akin to the validation they have craved for years. Some major industry players are practically giddy at the prospect of a superpower, the United States, wholeheartedly embracing the currency that started off as a mysterious project championed by coders in the shadows. They foresee a future in which everything from major defense contracts to foreign aid packages might be transacted in part through digital assets. Imagine the day governments negotiate trade deals, not only in dollars or precious metals, but also in digital gold. Though that might still sound futuristic, the wheels seem to be in motion. Meanwhile, commentary from the Senate Banking Committee reveals a splintering of opinions. Some senators applaud the White House for showing bold leadership, while others question whether this is a step too far, too soon. So far, no sweeping legislation has been brought forth that would place a strict limit on federal Bitcoin holdings. However, you can be sure that if skepticism grows loud enough, or if a fluctuation in Bitcoin's price triggers a wave of concern, we might see new legislative battles revolve around limiting or regulating the government's crypto accumulation. Adding yet another layer to the debate is the environmental question. Critics have pointed to Bitcoin mining's hefty energy consumption, contending that a move by the United States government to back Bitcoin might effectively encourage more mining operations. This, they say, conflicts sharply with the nation's pledge to move towards greener energy solutions. On the other hand, supporters retort that renewable energy usage in mining is on the rise, and that it is only a matter of time before next-generation mining facilities become more eco-friendly. Are we witnessing a turning point where environmental concerns and digital innovation must collide in legislative chambers to hammer out a compromise? Let us pivot to a broader historical viewpoint. This is not the first time the United States has grappled with the question of how to handle an asset on the cusp of wide-scale adoption. Decades ago, gold itself faced regulatory hurdles and controversies concerning whether individuals could hold it freely. Over the course of the 20th century, policies around gold ownership were sometimes reversed or restricted, prompting anxious speculation among investors. Now, as we trek deeper into the 21st century, Bitcoin might be playing a similar role. The difference is that digital assets come with their own complexities, like cryptographic security and decentralized block production, that simply did not exist in older models of wealth storage. Naturally, questions about who benefits linger in the background of every strategic government move. This is especially pertinent in an economy as large and influential as that of the United States. Will big businesses see an opportunity to cozy up to the administration, leveraging the government's pro-Bitcoin policy to drive their own adoption or product lines? Will small and medium enterprises that adopt Bitcoin in their transactions suddenly find themselves eligible for certain incentives or recognized as forward-thinking community pillars? And is there an angle here that fosters the creation of brand new government agencies dedicated to the oversight of digital currencies? These are precisely the kinds of issues that many experts believe we must examine with an unflinching gaze. The White House strategy might well accelerate innovation, spurring more businesses to develop user-friendly wallets, secure payment gateways, and robust compliance systems. That would be a profound shift in an economy that has traditionally relied on major credit card networks and banks. Yet it also might bring up new sets of challenges, such as how to protect consumers who are less technologically savvy. As this story drives onward, I want to invite you to consider subscribing if you are eager to keep up with the next twists in this crypto saga. Staying connected ensures that you will not miss a beat when more surprises inevitably surface. And trust me, in the world of digital assets, surprises are practically guaranteed. Let us circle back to the man of the hour, Hines. His role as executive director of the President's Council of Advisors on Digital Assets has made him a focal point for both praise and criticism. Some in Washington see him as a visionary, championing the next wave of monetary policy evolution. Others regard him as a risky gambler who may be pushing the government into an era of digital fragility. Time will tell which label best fits. Hines seems unfazed by the naysayers. In interviews, he speaks of a strategic plan that includes forging alliances with other departments, making sure that if Bitcoin has a place in the National Reserve, it is not overshadowed by the rest of the government's portfolio, but rather integrated seamlessly alongside gold and fiat holdings. This leads us to one of the most fascinating prospects, a future in which the Treasury Department might display its reserves not just in terms of gold bars, but also in megabytes of Bitcoin. Imagine, several years from now, a press conference where official accounts detail the weight of physical gold side by side with the quantity of Bitcoin stored in decentralized wallets. It is a reality that would have seemed impossible just a handful of years ago. But how exactly will this no-sell policy be enforced? If the price of Bitcoin soars into the stratosphere, might there be political pressure to capitalize on those gains for the sake of funding national programs? Or if the price plummets, will that spark a public outcry to reduce or discard the holdings? The White House maintains that the plan is unwavering. Yet, governments are not immune to shifting ideologies and elections that can produce abrupt policy shifts. Perhaps one aspect of the brilliance behind the no-sell vow is that it closes the door on certain types of speculation, sending a strong signal to markets and citizens that the government's intention is genuine and long-term, akin to the way it deals with gold. We are already seeing some ripple effects. Financial analysts are speculating that the intersection of government policy and crypto holdings could reshape risk assessments for the bond market. Traditional investors might re-examine their portfolios to align with potential shifts in policy that favor, or at least validate, digital assets. Meanwhile, global players, think major economies in Asia and Europe, could be prompted to revisit their stance on crypto reserves. If the United States government illuminates a pathway for official holdings, who is to say that other nations won't jump on board once they see tangible evidence of financial benefits? Still, we cannot ignore that Bitcoin's price fluctuations remain dramatic enough that the term roller coaster feels apt. In the past, we have seen the asset lose a significant percentage of its value in a matter of days, only to rebound remarkably soon after. Could such volatility ultimately shape or strain the narrative around the government's reserve strategy? One day, Hines might be hailed as the architect of an ingenious policy. On another day, if the meltdown is severe, he might be vilified as the figure who convinced the White House to hold on to a losing asset. Policy watchers claim that this is exactly why the roadmap emphasizes gradual accumulation, a series of steps designed to even out the risk over time. Another aspect that intrigues many is the interplay between the private sector innovations that drive the Bitcoin ecosystem and the government's new approach. For instance, a flurry of technology startups have already begun designing software protocols aimed at making large-scale, government-style custody of Bitcoin more secure. This synergy could further accelerate the conversation around mainstream adoption. It might lead to novel solutions that help the average person store value in digital form, bridging the gap between everyday bank accounts and the realm of cryptographic transactions. Meanwhile, as the White House moves forward with this plan, public sentiment remains as varied as the day is long. Some people cheer the notion that the United States finally steps into the digital age, refusing to be overshadowed by emerging economies that have experimented with crypto on a national level. Others worry that the government might overstep, overshadow private holders, or inadvertently control what is meant to be a decentralized financial system. In the end, the approach to storing, securing, and never liquidating any of the government's Bitcoin stash could either stand as a testament to an innovative era or represent a significant miscalculation if the markets take an unforgiving turn. At this point, you might be feeling the magnitude of this issue. Think about it. The White House is not merely dabbling in digital assets. It has publicly declared a plan to accumulate them, maintain them indefinitely, and effectively integrate them into the nation's core financial strategy. This raises countless questions about your own financial decisions, the potential regulations that could emerge in the near future, and the ways everyday Americans might interact with Bitcoin. With all this swirling, it is safe to say that the journey has only just begun, and that none of us can predict precisely where it will lead, though the speculation runs rampant. Some experts suggest that within a few short years, certain federal agencies could even accept fees or fines in Bitcoin, or incorporate partial digital asset payments for grants. That might sound far-fetched right now, but so did the idea of not selling a single Bitcoin that lands in government coffers. And yet, that is exactly what is being promised. Is it a stroke of genius, a leap of faith, or a dash of both? The boldness of these claims has thrust the government into an odd alliance of forward thinkers, some from political circles, some from tech startups, and even some from academia, each championing a narrative that transforms how we look at finance. There is a certain drama to all of this, akin to a suspense series. One episode reveals the secret negotiations that took place before the official stance was announced. Another episode teases the next big wave of internal policy meetings, revealing new details about how and when these purchases might happen. We watch as outside commentators weigh in, each with their own vantage points and pet theories, forming a swirling cauldron of anticipation. After all, when the government steps into an arena known for its grassroots anti-establishment beginnings, remember the early days of Bitcoin evangelists touting its ability to circumvent big banks and major powers. it is natural for the tension to intensify. The very system that Bitcoin was meant to circumvent is now embracing it. A final thought to consider. How might this shape the identity of Bitcoin itself? Will it remain a decentralized, anti-inflation store of value favored by techies and libertarians? Or will it morph into a fully mainstream commodity, accepted by the establishment with open arms? The White House's signal suggests it is the latter scenario. In deciding to treat Bitcoin almost as if it were a precious metal, the administration might well be setting the stage for a wave of institutional acceptance that earlier generations of crypto enthusiasts only dreamed about. Yet that acceptance comes at a price: oversight, regulations, and official involvement that might dilute the original ethos of the technology. One thing is certain: the story is far from over, and there will be no shortage of plot twists. As the book on the digital gold rush continues to be written, the role of the United States government will be inscribed in bold letters on those pages. Whether it becomes a triumphant success or a cautionary tale, it will unquestionably go down in history as a moment when the government decided to chart a new course, a course that many welcomed, many feared, and almost everyone is watching with rapt attention. With that, we bring our deep dive roughly to a close, though the waves of curiosity will surely continue. Did you find this exploration enlightening? If so, I would be honored if you shared it or sparked a conversation about it. The more people keep talking, the more informed we all become about the complexities, promises, and perils of the government's stance on digital assets. So, there you have it. From cryptic code to official policy, from the shadows of niche internet forums to the White House briefing room, Bitcoin has arrived on the national stage in a way few could have predicted even a handful of years ago. We hope you enjoyed this adventurous journey into the heart of one of the most striking economic transitions of our time. Keep your eyes and ears open, because the next chapter of this grand experiment is forming right now, and we will be here to unpack every twist and turn as it unfolds.